my head becoming blurred by so much said. I'm in too deep waters I tread, can't catch my breath. A shadow chasing me, a game of hide and seek. Found they'll have a peek. All right, welcome everyone to another edition of Deconversion Stories. And there's Mikey. And today I have my friend. Well, I put in the title Romper Room Skeptic, but their name is actually Che Contrary. So welcome to the show, Che.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. What I do here is I chat with folks around about when they were part of a belief system and how they found their way out of it. So basically, I just kind of ask you to take us back in time a little bit because you're fairly recently out of a belief system. So take us kind of back into those days, the whole indoctrination, and then sort of how you found your way out of it, kind of thing. And then if I have something stupid to say, you'll put my hand up or something. So
yeah, please stop me if I have a tendency to get anxious and then I just start rambling and I don't know what comes out of my mouth. Sometimes I'm quite surprised.
No problem. And by the way, if you heard that Mario coin noise, which Mikey didn't apparently, that's the drinking game. Hashtag coins. So whenever you see that go up, yeah, everyone has a drink. Of course, I have to drink water because of the damn pills I'm on. But anyway,
solidarity.
Yeah, and oh, by the way, this coming Tuesday, I go in for the big butt snake, the colonoscopy. So I can't eat. I can't eat anything on Monday, and I got to drink all these what do you call it, laxatives and stuff like that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I was telling you, Che, about that, and you were like, yeah, just get rubber sheets for the bed or something, or like some adult diapers or something, which I think is funny. Anyways, I'll let you take over there and bring out the story, and we'll chat about it.
Well, let's see. I started going by Romper Room Skeptic because one of my earliest memories was being on an episode of Romper Room, which was back in the early 60s. And I remember I don't remember much about the experience. I was a preschool kid, but I do remember everybody had to pray before the snacks. And I apparently reached for a snack too soon, got my hand slapped because I reached for a snack before the prayer.
Oh, geez.
So
they actually did that on the show, eh? Prayer before the show airs kind of thing?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, on the show.
Oh, wow.
It is all part of the whole indoctrination.
Yay.
So I was born in the early 60s and raised by fire-breathing Baptists, tent people, revivalists.
Right.
Throw their hands in the air and fire and brimstone and will rain down upon you, and graphic depictions of the crucifixion and Vacation Bible School and anyone that my mom could stick me in, because she needed a babysitter and they were free. And and I'm sure that she thought I would learn something good from there. But a lot of rapture anxiety is what I remember most, being, just constantly on the edge that, because Jesus was coming back any second. And you don't want to be caught sinning. And according to what I heard is that a sin is a sin in your mind if you just think it, even if you don't act on it. So, you don't want to be caught sinning when Jesus comes back. So, it's just this constant on edge anxiety that any moment, oh my God, what intrusive thoughts are going through my head, and being exposed to, in spite of being Baptist on Sundays and Wednesdays, on the other nights of days of the week, there was all kinds of other things going on in behind closed doors. X-rated party albums. I remember listening to
Wow.
things on the weekend nights that were preached against on Sunday morning, and then being so confused because we're supposed to be acting like we're all, perfectly upright citizens, and model Baptist, and because like on communion, when they do communion, they would have this story, this sermon that was all about you have to be right with God before you come up in front of everybody and take, do the whole flesh and blood ritual. And so while this sermon's going on, all these families are giving each other side eyes, right? Because who's gonna acknowledge that they've been too sinful to accept this offer, this sacrifice, or partake in this ritual? Of course, nobody's gonna sit back. Everybody's gonna, so you can see all this happening on everybody's faces because, the kids talked about what was going on in their homes behind closed doors, and it didn't align with what they preached to each other on Sundays and Wednesdays and all this. So yeah, it was a whole. As I got older, we moved around a lot. There was a lot of abuse in my home, and going through a satanic panic thing. We moved from a mainstream Baptist in the keeping track of time, years, decades. I feel like I'm millennial. I'm older than Moses some days. I don't know. But so back in the mid 70s, it was mainstream, and in the church that we went to, our youth group was very active, but it was fun. We had all kinds of trips. We'd go canoeing and Bible camp, but we got to canoe and hike and stuff in between all the Bible studies and whatnot. But then we moved to Springfield, Missouri, and we showed up at this new church. It was a Baptist church, but this one was different.
Was Ned Flanders there? Did he live in Springfield? Sorry.
And so in the year before in Oklahoma City, the youth group would go to the school dances and stuff. So dancing wasn't a sin.
Oh.
Or playing card games or things like that. But then we moved to Springfield, and we're at this new Baptist church, and suddenly everything is a sin. We don't dance. We don't play cards. That's the devil's entry or whatever, and there's the rules changed. And I had been so severely traumatized from all kinds of things by this point and I was going through, I was about 13, 14 years old. So things were happening. I didn't know what was happening. And I was being put into a gender role and expectations that just really fucked with my head. And then in addition to my maternal side coming from the Baptist, my mom got hooked up with some pedo man, and he lived with us while he was married to another woman, and so there was, in this small Baptist town, predominantly Baptist town, so in the 60s and 70s, as a divorcee, so we were the subject of gossip, and it was just such a trip. But with this new church and these new rules and the other abuse that was happening behind closed doors, it started turning into a family cult, an abusive, it was very cult-like, and he used the sermons that he was getting in his Sunday school and church and whatever to then, because he was the one reporting directly to God, and there's this whole umbrella
Right.
thing of hierarchy.
Yeah.
And so he reported to God, and everything under his umbrella was a reflection on his godliness. And I was turning out to be a stain on his reflection. And so I started rebelling, and then we moved again. I think we moved about every couple of years, my whole life. And it seemed like, looking back, about the time that the locals started figuring out that there's something really fucked up with that man, he had to move us somewhere else.
Oh boy.
And then we left Springfield and moved to Republic, which is outside Springfield. And this next church, which was my last church as a member of any Baptist church, was even more fucked up, if that's even possible.
Yeah.
But this preacher, Brother Mensch, as well, all I
Mensch
remember.
was his name?
Brother Mensch.
Wow. There's a Hebrew word that is mensch, and what it means is, like, if you're like I'd do something nice for my mom or something, and then everyone else in the family would say, "Oh, what a mensch," because it means like a good little boy, mama's boy type thing, I guess.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Well, through the week, about this point, that's when I started having to fight. The only way I had to fight back against everything that was going on was rebelling. And I had gotten into drugs and alcohol, and found that it allowed me to shut the voices off in my head and fight back. And that led through a little stint through juvenile detention, but the preacher of this church, he would go and follow us kids, high school kids, on the weekends when we're hanging out, right after football games or whatever. He would stalk us on weekends, and then on Sundays from the pulpit, he would deliver this sermon and not call out anybody by name specifically, but everybody knew who he was talking about. It was a very small church. And so then he would gather all of the men of the families, the fathers of the households and everything, and then apply the pressure to them that they needed to get a grip. They needed to put the screws down, tighten the screws and whatnot, because everybody had a reputation.
Right.
And I finally, after I managed, after running away a couple of times and getting picked up by the police and put in
I've been there.
And I learned that if I wanted to get out of juvenile detention, that I had to keep my mouth shut and stop. But I didn't have much of a filter, so I was just saying shit.
I feel that.
My mom came and picked up my sister on the same day we got picked up, but they wouldn't let me out, right? Which I blamed on them for a while, until I was informed by the other inmates that if I'd shut my mouth and tell them what they wanted to hear, I could get out and then actually run away. But if I tell them that I'm going to run away again if they let me out, they're not going to let me go anywhere.
Yeah, no.
I'm kind of slow on the uptake sometimes when I'm, seeing red. So
understandable.
I got out of there.
Yeah.
And finally my grandma came, and I don't know exactly what the conversations were behind the scenes, but I had called my grandma on the week that I had managed to evade the police on my little runaway truancy trip. And I tried to get my grandma to come rescue me. And she lived in Neosho, Missouri. And so we're up by Springfield, and I know she wanted to. And so I know how my family talked to each other. The grapevine was on fire. So there were conversations between my mom and my grandma, and my grandma's had about enough of my mom's bullshit. And my mom's like trying to, deny that there's any bullshit to deny. And finally the exchange, the negotiations were made. They would exchange me halfway between Springfield and Yosho. And so that happened. And then I got to finally, I was finally not forced to go to church anymore. And then I'd always been encouraged to read. That was never a problem. I would, as long as I was quiet and not causing any problems, I could read whatever I could get my hands on, and I did.
Right on.
I was reading my grandma's college textbooks when I was in grade school. So
Right
I was learning about mythology, Roman mythology, child psychology and development, and comparative religions, and my grandma read things like Chariots
were your
of the
grandma's
Gods.
books? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that book.
And so I was, and then we watched things like The Omen. Even growing up when we, everybody believed in demons. So, and then we're watching these movies like in the 70s, Race with the Devil or Something Evil. Those are the two that stick out as some of the most, two of the most traumatic films I watched as a kid. Now I love horror movies. But I started reading
horrors too.
I started reading everything, philosophy, and I always had a library card. That was one of the first things that I did wherever I moved, was get a library card.
Yes.
And I dissociated a lot while I was in most of my schools. So that I did a lot of extracurricular reading. I was lost in books and fantasy worlds, and that was an escape, a safe place to go.
Right. Was never really a huge reader as a kid. That didn't come till later on. But when I was a kid, any reading I was doing was usually a comic book or something like that. So, but later on in life, I got into the whole reading of actual books and stuff like that, like Dragonlance and other fantasy type shit, right?
Music was my other outlet. I came from a musical family and a family of storytellers. And so everybody in my family played some instrument of some kind or sang. And so I was trained early on. I started playing, formally trained on the French horn in 4th grade.
Oh, cool.
And then I started on clarinet, and then I had to go back to clarinet one year because in 6th grade, because we moved to a town that didn't have a French horn available for me. I was in the Tulsa All City Band in 6th grade. I was in the Springfield Youth Symphony on French horn later. And then I played valve trombone. I taught myself how to play bassoon one summer. Band director sent that home with me over the summer break and said, "Can you play this by fall?" I'm like, okay.
Sure.
And so I did that. I played trumpet in jazz band in one of my enrollments through. I was in and out of college. It took me 3 or 4 different trips to get over like a 10-year period to get my 4-year degree, which I did get. And
awesome. degree in?
Well, I had plans.
No, but
They
what was your
changed
degree in?
along the way. Each time I went back, and it depended on what I was hyper focused on at the time and interested in, and classes that were available. And I wanted to study film. That was not available, so the next thing was broadcast journalism. Really wasn't interested in learning how to do the evening news. I would have preferred more artistic pursuits.
Oh,
Where were we?
oh, there you go. There's a
Oh,
little
yeah,
bit
that's
of a
great.
delay for us, so we were wondering,
Yeah.
like, oh, did we lose it? Did we lose them?
So you wanted to go into more artistic pursuits, you said. So be it like music or
So
stuff like that.
and then I did. At one point, I wanted to be in like the Philadelphia Philharmonic. For one,
Oh,
I
cool.
like the name, because it has they both words start with P, and it was a big name. And I listened to a lot of classical music, or studio musician. I wanted to be a rock star. I taught myself how to play guitar. I'm a songwriter and something of a singer. I've been in some bands, but my degree, I studied communication. I had to figure out what the fuck was going on, because I noticed that nobody seemed to understand me, and I didn't know how to talk to people, and I didn't know what talking about half the time. And so I had to study communication and psychology, and I had to figure out how to people right.
Right.
But then I ran out of time or money or a house to live in, or things happen. And so or trauma, that happened several times. And I had run away, and which led me into the last cult that I was in and out of, and spent a lot of time in and out of, which in the 80s, and I was losing shit in my 20s, drinking and drugging all the time. So I didn't know what to do. It seemed to me that I had tried everything under the sun possible. I had prayed. I had moved and tried to start over and over and over, and finally found myself at a 12-step meeting and got sucked into that for a while, and moved through some out of magical thinking. But I went back to college and finished my degree and got it in general studies. I
Okay.
didn't have enough time to finish and money to finish the communication degree. And plus, I wanted to do more social justice activist stuff. I was working at or serving as the president of the local campus chapter of the National Organization for Women, and trying to organize a local Pride Community Center in a very closeted, terrifying little corner of Southwest Missouri. And
yeah, I bet.
And in a very cliquey gay community. So that was that. It was a lot of work. I was leading marches and take back the night rallies and going to after I came out of the closet as queer in my 20s, and then I was going to the state capitol and lobbying for gay marriage rights.
Right. That's awesome.
While I was going to college, I was able to do that. But then as I was graduating, it was like, well, I've got to make a living. So, and then the voices from my childhood and mostly sound a lot like Nellie Olson and my sister combined. in my
You
head.
talking about Nellie from from Little House on the Prairies?
Oh yeah, I've got a whole cast, and there's the mindscape of my mind is like a TARDIS. It's way bigger on the inside, and there's a lot of shit happening.
Gotcha.
And well, where was I?
I got lost at TARDIS.
Yeah. Well, no, you were saying it's something.
Nellie Olson and my sister
Nellie,
were
right.
telling me that I had to measure up, and a sign of success, and that I was doing things right, and that had a blessing of my higher power that was not the Sky Daddy, maybe a doorknob or an ashtray, I don't know. But I had to be successful, and at that time, success meant, the latest cars, the best houses, the best clothes.
Jeez.
Things that never really mattered to me, but it seemed to matter to everybody else. And so, I apparently thought that I needed some of those people's approval. So I combined business management courses and marketing and a bunch of shit that put me to sleep. And I really had to come up with some creative mind hacks to keep from falling asleep in class. Like forcing myself to sit on the front row.
You need a shock
which
collar.
I usually I didn't mind doing, actually. On the classes that I liked, I was right up there in front, fully engaged. But the classes that I didn't like, I would have rather at the back and, pretended to not be there. So I ended up with a degree and got into the call center industry, doing outbound sales calls, and then started climbing up some kind of weird, twisted corporate ladder in a really toxic environment. And I, at some point when I was between management level in the customer service department and doing account manager work and wining and dining clients and becoming and trying to find the next level, the next rung on the ladder, became a director of a department that I knew nothing about. And it was involved with mortgage banks and insurance. And I was going through what I today would unofficially call probably autistic burnout. And took a big swan dive off the top of that ladder and caught myself with my face. And then I had to hire a lawyer because they offered me a severance package because they were retiring me.
They were retiring you?
Yeah. And offering me
at least a decent severance package or what?
No, it was really insulting.
Oh shit.
Especially for what, I deserved high risk pay. I had been working 24/7, traveling from time zone to time zone, living out of corporate apartments, tearing the fuck out of my neck, on call constantly, had multiple bosses with conflicting interests.
Of course.
I didn't know. And then people that reported to me, teams that reported to me that I had to account for, and wearing like 15 different hats. I didn't know which was up.
Right.
And they, and it was like growing up again in that abusive environment where the rules kept changing, the goalposts kept moving, and the rules were never clear. Nothing was. I couldn't. I just didn't understand.
Yeah,
it's very confusing.
It sounds like utter chaos.
But then I got to tour. I got to go on a tour of some local psychiatric units. And when I started out, and corporate, and I had really good benefits as and as a mid management level, whatever.
Mhm.
You start out with the nice private hospital. But then the insurance only, says,
Only
well,
lasts so
you
long.
get 3 days and then got to go back to work. And they, kicked me out way too soon, but not soon enough. And I tried it again. And then the next time I got those ideations that, wanted me to Thelma and Louise myself off a cliff or something. um, they managed to find me a bed in the mid-level range, maybe a 2-star accommodations in Topeka, Kansas.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And this was about the time that smoking was no longer being tolerated very much. And so I was, like cold turkey on everything. I had no way to medicate myself. They were giving me medications and experimenting, because they have a medical practice and they just practice on guinea pigs like me. And then they don't listen to me when I try to tell them what this shit's doing to me.
Right.
And they just tell me to stay on it. But they don't ever tell you what it will be like if you want to try to get off of it later.
Right.
Nobody knows that shit. It's like, well, that's not even part of the plan. What do you think? Get off that shit. We're just going to add more, because then you'll have side effects from these that will require more medications, which will have side effects that require these other medications. And then I'm having chronic pain. My body is racked with pain, and I'm flipping out on myself and everybody else. I can't, and the first doctor I went to with that was telling me that they thought I was seeking drugs.
Right.
Well, yeah. Got any that's going to help with this shit? And so they were skeptical, which granted they should be. And so they went and had sent me for x-rays. And then the next morning they called me bright and early and said, we have an appointment for you. Like, can you be here in an hour to have these MRIs done? There looks to be some serious problems going on with your neck. Yeah, I tried to tell you that. And so that started a whole pain management regimen thing, and surgeon consults and in physical therapy that only exacerbated the problem. And then narcotics, and which actually helped.
Weird how that is, eh?
In spite of all these, fear-mongering others, it actually helped me, and it allowed me to go back to work.
Excellent.
And I had to keep increasing the dosage over time. The body becomes dependent.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't consuming any of these substances abusively. I was very focused on doing this, I was very conscientious with it, because I had been in the program, and I'd spent 6 years completely abstinent and ready to check out until my fortunately I had a decent human sponsor that said that I needed professional help, and helped me get to actual therapist, instead of encouraging me to do more 4th and 5th and 6th and 12 steps and stuff.
Right.
So that, I think, has something to do with keeping me alive through that stretch. And that just doesn't happen for everybody.
Right. That's true. That's true.
I've seen a lot of people that program killed. I'll say it. I don't care. True or not, it was how I saw it. I was very serious about paying attention to what was happening with my body, because I was fucking now aware that I'm in my body and and it hurts, and I've got to pay attention. I've got mood swings, depression, all these things to manage, and trying to do a corporate executive job, and go through custody battles with an abusive ex, and just everything seemed to be happening all at once, which I don't know, it seems to do that. And sending out of the hospitals, narcotics. Oh, then they take the narcotics away. And because of an opioid crisis, apparently some people were dying.
Mm-hmm.
And I have I feel a tremendous amount of all kinds of things about that, but my world was very small at the time, because my body was screaming at me, and the voices in my head it was very noisy in my head, and I just needed some relief. And then they took what seemed to help. They took it away.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back. I was no longer able to work. I went through, I spent a year on going in and out of intermittent FMLA. Finally got short-term disability, which led to long-term disability, which finally then I applied for Social Security disability and a second time, and then had to go through the appeal process and got that. And I've been able to breathe since then.
Mm-hmm.
Moved back home where I grew up because I couldn't afford to live on my own anymore with the significantly reduced income, and my sister offered me a home in her better homes in Garden, Live, Laugh, Love Baptist home. She gave me a room there for several months, and then started deciding that I just didn't look disabled enough, and that this was just maybe taking too long for this disability to go through, and maybe I should just really consider going back to work.
What?
And by the way, are you saved?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Apparently, you only need to have it happen once, and you're saved. It doesn't matter what you do after.
Until you use that as a leave me the fuck alone. I was once saved. Apparently, I'm always saved according to how we were raised. So shut the fuck up. And she's like, well, no. That just means that you were never truly.
Oh, saved. Fuck off.
Yeah, that made me scream for half an hour all the way home that day. And I was going through my deconstruction process at the time. I didn't know, again, which way was up. I had just learned about evolution with enough information. I mean, I came from young earth creationists that are like this close to being flat earthers.
Oh, goody.
Yep.
So I never really I kind of accepted that evolution was probably something that sure happened, because what is time anyway? Wibbly wobbly timey wimey shit, right? So and I had talked to Grandma when I was a kid, like, this says on one day God did this shit, and then what is a day?
Yeah, right.
Can you riddle me that?
Don't you love how God made plants before the sun? It's like, what?
That's what you
do.
My
grandma, though, she was so cool. She went to college in the 60s and got an Associate of Arts degree in fine arts, and studied philosophy, and was open-minded, and was willing to engage in conversation. That got down on me later, but I could ask her those questions, and we would contemplate these things. Well, maybe it means this, Or maybe it means that. Maybe a day is 1,000 years or 1,000 millennia. I wonder what it could be, you know? And so it's like, oh, cool. Let's go to the library and see what we can find out.
Pretty sure the library is going to tell you that a day is about 24 hours.
It's a pocket
Well,
change.
it's a matter of interpretation.
No, it's a matter of the rotation of the planet.
It's the cesium, whatever atom vibrating.
That's right.
Oh, see, I only took one science class in college, and that was zoology, and they told me that I could memorize that and pass it. So, and I did. So,
Oh,
yeah, I was more interested in the arts.
Yeah.
And math. Oh, yeah. Math was a whole nightmare of dissociation and messages that, you know, whatever gender they, you know, assigned me at birth. That one doesn't have the math module that works. And so I accepted that. And that would just be too hard. So I don't even want to try. And now it's I have parts of my that are not always talking to other parts, and I think they carry the math module, but they don't share it. So
you got to get them organized.
I have no
anyway,
math
yeah,
brain.
it was just
I'm the music brain.
But music involves math. What are you talking about?
It doesn't feel like math to me, though. It just feels like it's right.
Fair enough.
and pictures and images and charts and graphs, and it moves in colors and in several dimensions, but not without plus signs, and it has sharps and flats, but multiplication and division and fractions, well, except for time codes and reading music is kind of a nightmare for a math fog. Anyway,
well, that's where your fractions come in anyways.
It was about 2019. I was fed up with, I had moved back here in 2014. I had returned to the people that I knew, my friends, and they were all from the program that I had been very dedicated to back in the 80s or 90s, and then left and found out that I could consume substances without going to all of these devastating well, except for the psychiatric hospitals, but I didn't blame that on the alcohol or drugs. But I found that I didn't drink like I did out of control. I read a book called Moderation Management, and I learned that I could actually moderate my drinking. And sometimes I found I didn't even like getting drunk. Most of the time, I don't like getting drunk. I like getting high. I like getting buzzed, but I don't like being that black. I used to be a good drunk, was falling down, blackout, wake up with, asking everybody, what the hell happened last night? Must have been good.
I've been there a few times. Yeah.
And if I remember it,
okay?
It wasn't good enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Except when you're getting booed off the stage because you can't hear yourself and you're too drunk to sing and too drunk to know you're too drunk to sing.
That's the problem.
There a couple times too.
It's not a good look. I don't recommend it.
Yeah, never do karaoke when you're hammered. That's all I can tell you.
No. You sound great. Turn it up.
But I'm back here. I'm hanging out, trying to go back to AA meetings, mostly for the community. And I'm a spiritual, not religious person, kind of, I guess. I had been through everything I could find, from A to Zoroastrianism.
Oh, good Lord, yeah. I got it. When you say, because everyone sort of has their own sort of definition of what spiritualism is. What did it mean for you to be spiritual?
Well, I still had this idea that there was a God or some realm. There was a dualism, that there was a soul that was separate from the body that somehow interacted with the body, drove the meat suit around, kind of like a Dalek, maybe.
Meat suit.
It's a mech armor.
But my mind
Meat mech.
had left this body and had a near-death vision or experience. Yes, mushrooms were involved.
Yeah, no doubt.
Damn mushrooms.
But I saw my body on the ground, experienced nothing but pure consciousness. No
I thought
sense
that
of
happened
matter,
to me
no
once too.
weight, no. It was just, I could see everything. There was no emotions, which is really cool when you're trying to be numb. It was just all curiosity and observation. And it was like, oh, this is cool. But they kept bringing me back into my body, which was very heavy and very fucked up. I didn't like being in it. And there was a lot of gravity being sucked into the black hole. So anyway, that
Gravity
experience
sucks.
had been so compelling.
I'd drop it if I were
around
you.
my 16th birthday, that by the time I was in college and going through philosophy class, I'm arguing with my philosophy instructor who was an atheist, but he didn't have the right questions, or I had too many defenses up, or my experience was so compelling. I mean, I am rather contrary. I do like to argue with people. And I was quite convinced in
Hence the name.
my things, the world that I had built in my mind, how things worked. And so it stuck with me for a long time. And then I started getting pissed off at the shit that I was noticing in last time through AA. And it was like, I was feeling the dissonance. Everything was out of tune. It was like, this does not align with my experience. This shit doesn't make sense. They're repeating the same shit over and over. This is a big circle jerk. What the fuck is happening here? And then the politics, the arguing, the double talk, we love each other, but oh my God, behind each other's back, they were ripping each other to shreds. And the victim blaming, and it's like, none of that sat right. I tried to be a good servant, in this organization because I wanted to help people. I've always wanted to help people.
Which is great.
But I found that these other people were, and again, I'm a Taurus, and not that that means anything anymore, but I am rather bullheaded and
It
stubborn.
never did.
Contrary. And I do argue with people a lot, and especially people that like to argue with me. And there are many of them that want to take control of the group. And so I was in a volunteer position as a treasurer for my group, my home group, and somebody from a different home group decided that they had plans to combine all these groups into one group so that they could get their own treasurer in, and because they didn't like listening to me. I was asking questions and pointing out things and trying to reconcile the programming with new ideas and everything. I don't know. It is a mess. And plus the physical pain of sitting in that fucking chair, listening to this nonsense for over an hour is like, I've had enough. And they took away my narcotics, which made it bearable. So I did manage to get back on the, what, they in the program called the marijuana maintenance program. And once I got off
I am
the
familiar
narcotics,
with that program.
What is that? What is that?
that's where you
Marijuana
can be
maintenance
sober,
program?
but you can use marijuana but you can't talk about using marijuana in the meetings
Right.
because you're not really sober. And they will all talk about you behind your back about how you're not thoroughly following the path, which means you're, of course, constitutionally incapable of being honest with yourself. And
Right.
and wanting everybody to stay away from that one because they're not doing it right. And so I was getting already marginalized for me, and and I was like, "Oh, okay, I've had enough." So I started staying home, and I found YouTube, and that's where I watched Richard Dawkins deliver a 1991 Christmas lecture series on evolution.
Yep.
And then I started thinking, I got to figure out whether this Bible shit is real or not. And I found one thing after another: the debates, Hitchens, Dawkins, Sam Harris, the Four Horsemen, and algorithms that led to debates, and the last straw that I brought everything was when I watched some street epistemology videos.
Anthony Magnabosco.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was the last. The whole house of cards fell. There's no spoon. I'm Wile E. Coyote off the edge of the ledge, and there's nothing underneath me. And then I found out that, religious trauma syndrome is a fucking mess of mind fuck, and trying to come out as an atheist, and with your fire breathing Baptist with a side of holy roller family, it was a whole other mind fuck. And I went through a whole dissociative, really weird period of time and trying to process all of that. Found recovering from religion. Tried to
Always have it linked
I wanted
below.
to volunteer.
Very cool.
I started going through the volunteer training stuff and found myself getting triggered again with the religious trauma. And so I have to put aside and do other things. And then I weeks or months would go by, and it's like, okay, I want to do this. So I get in. I'm still watching all these videos on YouTube and trying to find. I'm blocking people. I'm going no contact with family members. I'm starting to talk out loud about what I grew up with and what I was subjected to and what happened to me and what I survived. So now I'm having to block people, and my family went down the QAnon sinkhole, and anti-masking and anti-vaccine and
idiots,
transphobic, and it's just a whole.
Yay.
So I've been no contact with a lot of them. I've reconnected with other family members, extended family members that are of more like mine, more open-minded, which has been really nice. Because we have that shared history of, we grew up with a lot of the same stuff, same people, making new friends, trying to figure out how to make new friends, and coming out as non-binary and changing my pronouns, dealing with my mental health or mental illness, and acknowledging that I may be autistic as fuck and ADHD, and I've probably got I have dissociative identities that are mostly integrated but I watched this podcast the other day with Sam Harris and James Fadiman. They were talking about the his book Symphony of Selves, and this myth of the unified self. And this idea that if there is a multiple personality disorder, that would maybe imply there's a multiple personality order. And if you argue with yourself, who are you arguing with? And how many parts, personas, roles, functions, tapes, codes, inner children, shadows, whichever, I mean, it's the language has changed over the years, and the concept has become more fleshed out from transactional analysis. I'm okay, you're okay, to inner child work and shadow work and stuff. And I've been reading all of that and learning about my own journey in my own mind, all these years in the process. So anyway, all of that has just happened in the last couple of years, and I don't know, since 2020.
Damn.
Wow.
And I went through Dr. Marlene Winnell's
Marlene's great.
Journey-Free,
Yeah.
5-month religious trauma intensive program that met weekly for, and from that, as a result of that, it has had a huge impact on
That's fantastic.
on my sense of well-being, my being able to, unclench my fists. And I still like to clench them. I will argue with anybody that digs their heels in and says stupid shit. And sometimes it's myself. Often it's myself. I do spend a lot of time engaged with or trying to referee arguments in my head. I don't know what the fuck's going on in there half the time. Or it's very amusing. I'm trying to write some material for stand-up because I think I'm quite hilarious. My neighbor thinks I am too, and I don't know, but maybe she just wants me to take care of, entertain her kids. No, my neighbor is like my best friend. I want to get to a place where I feel comfortable enough, confident enough, or just not care enough to be back on stage and sing and play my guitar.
That'd be cool.
Which is a challenge because I'm, my body is racked with pain, which makes practicing challenging. And then my squirrel mind is constantly running off in all directions. And I'm chasing after all of them because I also like to take photographs. I like to paint. And I write. I'm working on my life story with a biographer.
Very cool.
Trying to put that together. I'd like to do a podcast, but then I have other parts in my head that tell me just nobody wants to hear what I have to say. Just shut the fuck up.
Oh,
Go
that's a
paint
load.
something. Okay. So
you can think that all you want, but you're wrong.
Yeah.
Everybody likes something.
yeah, that would be true.
Yeah,
I think that kind of takes me through some of the twists and turns of my. I always mix it up: family circus or family circle. That
circus
comic strips, where the kid takes the long way home.
Yeah,
that's kind of what it has felt like. Finding my way out.
Awesome. Well, I think it's good that you did, because I find a lot of folks that might be in your shoes end up, or something similar, end up just even more traumatized by the religious people around them that don't understand, right? So they literally almost demonize you, and I think that that's horrifying. Now that you call yourself an atheist, how's the relationships been with the people from your past and your family and stuff like that? Has many of them ended, or are you still in contact with lots of them?
Well, it was kind of rough.
I don't doubt
my
that.
sister chased me around, with the proselytizing, the Bible thumping, and I was running away because I didn't know how to answer those, how to answer questions. I didn't know what I thought, and I didn't know how to articulate why I didn't believe. It's just too absurd. How can I? I don't know why it's absurd, but it's just fucking absurd, and I can't believe it. I can't make myself believe it. I don't know why
Oh, it's
that is either.
absurd.
I just don't.
It's
And
absurd. The entire
and then I
notion is
started,
absurd.
and then I started watching more of the call-in shows and
Mhm.
listening to
Yeah.
the arguments, and it started clicking. I've been through philosophy class. I read philosophy. I love studying philosophy and these arguments, but there was always some blinder on, or some pair of glasses that not all of it I could sync up. And
Right.
now, having come out of this next closet, I've been coming out of closets after closet after closet all these years, but this last one coming out of an atheist, and it's like, it's they're starting to feel like they're in tune, and I have some solid ground to stand on, and
Mhm.
I have something that I can rate my level of confidence in. I don't have to hold my beliefs so tightly, because
Right.
growing up in the church I came in, you had to know that you know that you know.
Yep.
And I didn't understand how anybody could know some of the things they were know. But now that I've learned how to articulate the reasons why I don't believe, and why I dismiss all of these reasons, why they used to convince me and why they don't convince me anymore. I
Mhm.
stopped running from my family that was trying to save me, and also pray for me to be broken so that I would return to the fold and crawl back to
Oh,
God.
wow. That's
Yeah,
lovely.
there's a lot of that. It also has that tough love thing. They're gonna stand by and watch me fall into the gutter and stay there and in a fetal position while they pray that if I just reach out my hand.
Yeah,
But
just put some money in it and I'll be all right.
Is this the number to someone who can help? Thank you. Because I need
I
help.
stopped running, and I turned around and started asking them all of the same questions that I had been wrestling with all these years. And they gave and I was like, "Oh my God, this is the bingo game. This is the
Oh,
Talk
trope
Heathen
number
and,
1.
and the
Trope
Atheist
number 2.
Experience bingo game. I know what's wrong with these answers."
Yeah.
And
They did run that for a while.
I started pointing these things out, and so they're like, "Well," and they just dismiss that and move on to the next one and the next one, and
Moving
so
the
they're
goalposts.
running down their field of fallacies, and I'm chasing. Which then it did turn into a lot
Flag on
of
the play.
trolling. I did spend a lot of time trolling my sister because, well, we go back, and
Like you do.
and she ended up blocking me and refusing to identify as my sister, and
Wow. See, aren't Christians or religious people, so even in general, just so lovely when times like that happen? Yeah.
you'll know them by their love, by their love.
Well done.
Nice.
The hard part, though, is that I have other people that I care more about the relationship, and they also care about the relationship with me, that are in the middle of that indoctrination, and I really want to help. I mean, and without
you can?
pushing them away. Some people I don't
Right.
mind. I'll chase you away.
With a stick.
But
A big one.
and it may fire at one end. But it's really hard when you have adult children that are, I didn't take the church myself, but I allowed them to be taken to church and brought up by the same people that, so I've got two children, adult children. One of them I found out later was in the process of deconstructing around the same time that I was.
Oh, wow.
So that's been really cool. Getting to
Yeah, you
have
guys can
those
like bond and
discussions.
shit over that, right? So that's great. That's really cool. That's and I
And
bet
I
I
have
bet
learned a
you.
lot.
Oh, is your child happy that you were too, so that you could be there at the same time and kind of feel things out, or?
I think so.
I would imagine. I would imagine so.
And I mean, my other kid, the oldest one, he's just got such a beautiful heart. It's such a huge heart, and he carries the weight of the world around on his shoulders, so feeling overly responsible for everything and everyone, and just never lets up on himself, and it just breaks my heart. So just try to be there and listen and
That's all you can do.
pass on those positive affirmations that I try to remind myself of occasionally.
Sure.
Like, it's okay to be human.
Life
is not fair, and you can
We don't have a
be
choice.
about that as you need to be.
We are human. we don't have a choice. We have to be okay with being what we are.
Unless you're a Dalek or a cyborg or a
Cyberman.
ghost, I don't know, or solipsist. I've really flirted with solipsism.
Well, yeah, that's for me. Solipsism
Mostly poetically.
is just it's a cop out, in my opinion. Solipsism. So.
Oh, absolutely. But it's one that I allow my parts to entertain, and in poems and short stories or midnight witching hour ramblings and rantings and ravings of whatever the fuck is going on in my mind.
Well, Che, I think we have gone past the hour. So I think
I would not be surprised. I am a wordy motherfucker.
It's all good. You were fantastic, and I just want to thank you for sharing all of that with us. Important stories like this, as I've often mentioned, are important so that people understand, if they happen to stumble on something like this, that they're not alone. That there are other people that are questioning their beliefs, questioning their faith, questioning the religion that they were born into, and feel like they need to break free, and they need to hear these stories so that they have some sort of a like a script, I guess you could say, of how these things often happen. So, and to know that there's people out there that got your back if you require it. Like, there's people out there that do have your back. So
I appreciate the opportunity and the platform, and that you have the executive function or access to somebody's executive function that allows you to have this platform, so I can come in here and talk. I appreciate it.
Well,
thank you.
I appreciate that you did, and I appreciate that you came in and shared everything with us, and came into my life in general, Jay. So it's great to get to know you a little bit, and we're going to do a little more, because I do an after party, so you'll be able to meet some more folks in the community, and we can bounce some ideas off each other. Generally, they're just for fun, anyways, right? So. We get together, we talk about silly stories and or Star Wars, or you never know what pops up in these things, or Doctor Who, if you're a fan of Doctor Who, which I am.
Absolutely.
I want to buy.
I don't think you would have figured that out
with all the mentions of Daleks. I don't know. Actually, I got something I want to show you real quick before we call her over.
It's a Dalek.
It's not a Dalek, but it's a T-shirt. You guys have seen me wear this before, but it's actually Daleks Express. It says, when it absolutely positively has to be exterminated. Which I thought was just fucking great, so I had to get that shirt. I like to buy T-shirts. I probably have like 300 T-shirts, and trust me, when I let my laundry go, it's a long day.
Are they mostly black?
Oh, they're all black.
Absolutely.
People have bought me colored T-shirts, and I'm like, great. And that one ends up in some drawer somewhere that never gets worn. And I use it for rags at some point. I just pulled scissors out and turned it into the rags or something. But yeah, Jay, it was great to have you on. Also, great to have everyone in the chat hanging out with us and contributing and stuff like that. Canadian Allman with disc golf. He's this random
just yells it
that he does there. Yeah. And thank you to everyone on the chats in both Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube there. All three, I mean, and my amazing patrons, because without you guys, I really wouldn't be able to do this. You do help me squeak by in the meantime so that I can keep doing this. So thank you all for what you do for the show.
You're awesome.
Exactly. And I guess we'll get into the after party. If you're into joining the after party, just let us know. There is a link for it if you just want to watch in the description box below, along with, as Shay mentioned during their chat, Recovering from Religion. Also, Marlene Winnell's programs are all linked below. So if you are having some issues and stuff like that, you can find those links below. And yes, I have Shay's Linktree link down below, so you can find Shay wherever they may be on the webs, and you can stalk them there if you like.
Yeah, not all those links work. Some of them are just placeholders.
Okay, gotcha. They'll figure it out.
I'm here and there.
They'll figure it out. All right, so we're going to get into the after party. If you want to be a part, like I said, just let us know. And as I always say at the end of the interview sections, like the late, great Christopher Hitchens once said,
atmosphere.
It's atmosphere. Yeah, it's called faith because it's not knowledge. And we'll see you guys next time.